HSBC stepping in to buy the UK branch of SVB can't overstate really the seriousness of that. And do you think all sort of contagion threat now has been contained?
Well, I thought you described it well, Isabel. Sliding Doors, another sort of cheesy Gwyneth Paltrow movie, right?
Oscar's Day.
John Leslie and all that. Look, if this hadn't have happened, this would be leading the news for the next 3 or 4 days. Gary Lineker or no Gary Lineker, budget or no budget. This would have been a contagion moment, as you say. You know, Northern Rock seemed fine back in 2008, and suddenly you had a run on the bank. We would have had TV images of queues of people standing outside banks this lunchtime if this sale hadn't have been agreed. So, you know, I often criticise the Treasury and the Bank of England. Hats off. They did a deal. I don't know the details of the deal. We may never know the details of the deal. The Chancellor is saying that no taxpayers' money has been used. Well, that's one for future historians. We do know that HSBC bought the UK arm of Silicon Valley Bank for £1. So there obviously are quite a lot of losses that they're going to have to take on, as well as all that client base. But for tech companies and other depositors at Silicon Valley Bank UK branch, their deposits are intact. That is the main thing. We can talk about something called moral hazard. Does this bailout mean that other banks will behave recklessly? I don't think so, because I think since 2008, I've often criticised it, but the regulatory environment in the UK is much stricter than it was.
Yeah, and banks can't help but make money. How does this one, or how did this one lose money?
Well, it lost money because in the US branch, it was heavily invested in bonds. And those bonds, the interest rate on those bonds, the price of those bonds fell as interest rates went up. Believe me, that means they had lots of losses they had to deal with. This was a response to the general increase in interest rates that we've seen around the world. SVB Bank, the way it was managing its deposits, the way it was investing customers' deposits, it went slightly wrong. But at least here in the UK, that contagion has been contained. But here's a little coda on this story. We're all thinking about the budget on Wednesday, and the Chancellor is under a lot of pressure from his own backbenchers. Oh, come on, you can afford not to raise corporation tax. You can afford to unlock those frozen tax thresholds. Give people a break. Spend a little bit of money. It's not as it was back in September.
Yeah.
Inflation's coming down. We haven't spent as much money on debt interest, energy subsidies, all the rest of it. The Chancellor could use this event, this near miss, to say, you see, this is why we need to be steady as we go. This is why we need to be cautious. I'm like a goalkeeper in global finance, he could say. You only see what I really do when I make saves.
And predictability is the key, isn't it, in all of this? And look, we had our meeting this morning, 4:15, whatever it was in the morning. I said, I guarantee he'll come out before the markets open at 8 o'clock and we'll have a statement at 7:45. And just like clockwork, it drops. And he knows how to reassure the markets, how to send the messaging out there. They've been working through the night on this.
If he hadn't, Isabel, then global markets would have gone haywire. Believe you me, banking stocks across the world would have been really, really hit. And as it seems now, obviously we'll see what happens when the US markets open, because this is mainly a US story. But for now, financial markets in London are relatively calm. The pound is relatively calm. But we'll see what happens this afternoon when Wall Street wakes up. But I think the Chancellor will be using this to say to his own backbenchers, oi, behave. We're not going to do any Liz Truss, Kwasi Kwarteng stuff. It's going to be as steady as you go, plain vanilla, boring budget on Wednesday.